so closely, Jesus, when this particular man enters into the picture or into the synagogue, who actually just has a deformed, withered right hand, and even question him. And we see that at Matthew 12:10. This leads us to the final question for this particular chapter, number 3. Now, what illustration does Jesus use to refute their wrong views? Okay, so we already know before we get into the question that every time Jesus sticks with scripture. He doesn't go with his own interpretation, his own thoughts, his own opinions. He always does his Father's will. He follows the scripture and the law to the T. Okay, so at Matthew 12, verses 11 and 12, we see that Jesus uses the illustration about saving a sheep, who has fallen into a pit. He says, "Who will be the man among you that has one sheep, and if this falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not get hold of it and lift it out?" Now, a sheep represents a financial investment, And Jesus knows, he knows with a certainty they will not leave it in the pit until the next day, perhaps to sicken and cause them loss. The sheep may die. So, in addition, there's also a biblical account that we look at Proverbs 12:10 that points out this: the righteous one is caring for the soul of his domestic animal. Then he takes it even further, drawing a parallel, and continues at Luke 6:9, saying this to them: "I ask you, men, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do injury, to save or to destroy a soul?" Of course, the religious leaders, whenever he does this, are unable to refute, because it's what? Logical and compassionate reasoning. And guess what? They remain silent. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast Bible study for the greatest man who ever lived, chapter number 33, fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy. Now, after Jesus learns that the Pharisees and party followers of Herod plan to kill him, he and his disciples withdraw to the Sea of Galilee. Here, great crowds from all over Palestine and even from outside its borders flock to him. He cures many, with the result that all those with grieving diseases press forward to actually touch him. Because the crowds are so great, Jesus tells his disciples to have a boat continually at his service. By pulling away from shore, he can keep the crowds from pressing in upon him. He can teach them from the boat or travel to another area along the shore to help the people there. Now, the disciple Matthew notes that Jesus' activity fulfills what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet. Then Matthew quotes the prophecy that Jesus fulfills. "Look, my servant whom I choose, my beloved, whom my soul approved. I will put my spirit upon him, and what justice is he will make clear to the nations. He will not wrangle nor cry out loud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the broad ways. No bruised reed will be crushed, and no smoldering flaxen wick will he extinguish, until he sends out justice with success. Indeed, in his name, nations will hope." So Jesus, of course, is the beloved servant of whom God approves. And Jesus makes clear what is true justice, which is being obscured by actually false religious traditions. Because of their unjust application of God's law, the Pharisees will not even come to a sick person's aid actually on the Sabbath. Now, making clear that God's justice, Jesus relieves people of the burden of unjust traditions, and for this, the religious leaders try to kill him. What does it mean that he will not wrangle nor raise his voice so as to be heard in the broad ways? What does that mean? When curing people, Jesus strictly charges them not to make him manifest. He does not want to have noisy advertising of himself in the streets, or to have distorted reports excitedly pass from mouth to mouth. Also, Jesus carries his comforting message to persons who are figuratively like a bruised reed, bent over and knocked underfoot. They are like a smoldering flaxen wick whose last spark of life has nearly been smothered. So Jesus does not crush the bruised reed or quench the flickering, smoking flax, but with tenderness and much love, he skillfully lifts up the meek. Truly, Jesus is the one in whom the nations can hope. You were just listening to Teachable Moments with April podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode.